So everything breaks down to basic 3-step process. Step 1, we need to get any rodent or vermins out of the structure. And then step 2, we need to come and seal up all of the entry points. It's kind of like turning off the water before trying to fix a pipe. If you don't get rid of the vermin and then you try to seal up the holes, they just like chew around it or they chew out of it. It just creates way more problems. If it's easier to just completely eliminate them, now all you have is a house with holes and you're just sealing up holes rather than trying to do both at the same time. Step 3 is sanitizing and like painting for like aesthetic purposes and stuff. Sanitation is really important because they have amazing noses. They're better than dogs, and rodents don't really control their bladder. Anywhere they're going, they're leaving a trail of urine, and that's why you'll see like trails, because they follow those, and that's to communicate as well. And they'll put different kind of attractants in there, like, hey, it's mating time, or hey, this is not a good place to go, or hey, this is a safe place to go. So if they've already like have a nest outside and they've come into your house, they've made a trail saying, hey, this is a safe place to come. So even if we get rid of all of the current rodents, then seal it up, those trails are still going to be there for a while. And so other rodents will be coming, they'll run into where they used to get in and they'll be like, oh, I thought this was like the place to hang out. And then they'll start looking for other places. And so that's why it can be hard to rodent proof a house and fully solve the problem. And then, so I'd love to say it was like a one and done type thing. I've just done way too many of these to fool myself, to fool you and be like, yeah, I can do it. And, it'll be warranted for life and stuff. Some companies will say they have a lifetime warranty. What they're warranting is the piece of metal that they put on there. They say, I guarantee a rat won't chew through that piece of metal for life. I guarantee you too, a rat won't chew through a piece of galvanized steel for life. But what they don't warranty is all of the rest of the house. So what we do kind of differently is we rodent-proof homes, and we really take that stress and worry and problem off your plate, put it on our plate so that you don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about it. If there is a relapse because of something, houses kind of expand and contract and like move just naturally in different seasons. We get really hot out here and we get really cold out here. That does things to your house. I don't know if like your doors ever kind of like jams in different seasons and stuff like that. It's the same thing. And we're just talking about a 1/4-inch gap kind of opening up. They slip back in, they chew back out, and you're starting all over again. So what we recommend is bundling our rodent exclusion service with our quarterly pest and rodent control, because all of our quarterly people are trained to, monitor and look for signs of rodents. And so we're able to maintain it. We're also able to keep those bait boxes out there. Most companies, pest control companies, quarterly like bug guys, they don't even do rodent proofing at all. It's a completely separate thing. It's another company. So you can have a guy out here, spraying bugs, and there might very well be a huge rodent problem. He's not even going to notice it most of the time. He's not going to tell you it's a problem because he doesn't do anything about it. It's like your mechanic telling you you've got like a plumbing problem or something. I don't know. So that's kind of like an overall arching idea of the program. And then typically I'll kind of step more into details on like yours. So I kind of go slow and I say, okay, so your house is a 2-story house. That means our guy's going to be about 30 feet off the ground, which, comes with its inherent risks on ladders and everything like that. And so it's just going to take a little bit more time. So we just need to kind of take that into consideration when we're looking at everything. We might need to, use harnesses and all that kind of stuff as well. Just, we have to follow all of the OSHA training regulations and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's actually a really good point. And I'm not just saying this for you, but I'm saying this because like I care about you, but like, yeah, getting on ladders isn't the safest thing. Nope. Like I've had employees whose like brother-in-law is like putting up the Christmas lights and then like the number one way that people die in the pest control industry is on ladders. Yeah. And it's not 30 feet in the air. They're 8 feet off the ground, and then they just kind of slip. And it only takes 8 feet for your body to do a 180. I'll get a little bit more into that. But like as far as activity, in the attic, we saw like the droppings. I showed you the pictures of the other signs of them. In other types of insulation, you'll see like trails in the insulation a lot easier because it's a softer insulation. Your insulation was like the spongier kind, so it doesn't compact as easily. And it doesn't show like the trails as well unless there's been a lot. And I did notice some of the trails But it wasn't like the worst I've seen. So that's why I put yours at like moderate. And then we did find like droppings. I mean, droppings is an obvious sign, you know, that there's something. And we saw like their roof rats. They look like roof rat droppings. In the garage, we saw like the little mice droppings, which is common. And that's the thing too, is, you know, we're not treating like mice, or we're not treating roof rats. We're rodent proofing your house. So it's like squirrels, raccoons, and all that other kind of stuff too. So like you're good to go. So then as far as like the house, you know, we inspected that. And so this is just kind of like a satellite view of your house. And then I've got kind of different things marking it all off. So starting on this side of your house, you had like the large wheat pole, which was like an inch wide, large enough for a rat, anything to get into. And then your house is 2 stories. The first story is brick, and then the second story is siding, which is very common. And what happens over time is that siding starts to kind of peel off a little bit and open up that little bit of a gap. And that is definitely can become an entry point. Rodents are amazing climbers. I will show you video after video of rodents going straight up brick. They don't crawl. They're not like rock climbing up it. They run up it like it's flat ground.
Yeah.
Crazy thing. One of the craziest things about rodents is, and I tell this to people, so let's assume that termites, you know, popped in through like a plumbing void, or like built a tube into, and they chewed up the side of your wall. Do you know if your insurance covers termite damage?
That's a good question.
Most insurances, actually all insurances, don't cover termite damage because it's not like a lightning strike where it happens, you know. It's a gradual thing that you allow to happen by not having proper maintenance or checks. And so if they do $10,000 worth of damage in your wall and you call the insurance company, they say, you let termites get into your wall? Why'd you do that? That's not on me. They don't pay for termite damage.
Yeah.
So if a raccoon gets into your attic, that's wildlife, because they can bust in a night and they can do a bunch of damage like in a night. Mice, roof rats, like Norway rats, the bigger guys, field mice, that's a gradual thing. So it falls under the same category as like pest control maintenance. So I've had it where mice get into a brand new build. It's been around for a month. The mice get into the attic, they chew the new water pipes they make that are plastic, and literally water flooding from the ceiling, carrying all the poop that was up there with it. Another one time I saw it made the wall all soggy, and the lady, I remember her name, Cora Snyder, like, because I'll still like send her people to like, don't believe me, ask Cora Snyder, and like she'll tell them like it happens, trust me. And been in the house for a month, flooded her wall, cost her $10,000. She was super mad. Insurance was like, that's not us. Like, that's you. Like, she just put down her life savings to buy a house, had nothing left in the bank, and her brand new house, the wall in her guest bedroom's all like soggy. So, you know, here's a picture of like that wheat pole, and that's what I'll do is I'll show a picture and I'll show where it is, and so they can see like you were with me. So that was nice, so I could kind of show you. But most times I'll show them a picture, and I'll be like, you know, there's the wheat pole. Okay, here's your AC line. You can see how it's just literally like a 4-inch gap inside your house. Rodents are always attracted to AC units because in the summer when it's hot outside, you're running your AC, and those freon lines, they condensate cold water, and so it's just a drinking fountain. And then as you saw, they nest right underneath that AC unit themselves. So they got shelter, they got water, and then there's food everywhere. And especially like with the acorn trees, there's like bugs and stuff. And so there's a perfect little house right there. But what happens when it starts freezing outside and raining and their little burrows flood? They move right into that hole where they can feel the heat coming out of, and they just go right up that AC line that leads straight up into your attic where your heater is, and they just like straight shot right up to there. It's just like every single house in DFW is built that way. They have AC units on the outside, tube going on the inside, typically up to the attic. So trust me, I got my work cut out for me. There's about 1 million houses. There's 5 million people, but they're building like 40,000 new houses every year, and they're just throwing them up, and they got holes all over them. And there's field mice, there's all kinds of problems. So like this is a crazy thing. Like this is like a real, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of like a gold rush because no other companies are doing this.
Yeah.
And it's not oh yeah, it's not like pest control where you could be like, yeah, I got some spiders, I got some ants in my kitchen, I squish them with my thumb when they pop up. Like this isn't bugs, this is like rodents. And the other thing about rodents that I tell people is like an ant is an ant, and it's been an ant for 1 million years, and it does the same thing an ant did 1 million years ago. It's got its instincts in it, and they do exactly what they're born to do, and they always act the same way. And so it's really easy to control bugs because you know exactly what they're going to do. And the thing about a rodent is they're not a bug. They have a brain. But yeah, so what I tell people is, I mean, that's why they use lab rats, you know? That's why they use them to experiment on, because they're smart. They can do like tests on them, like mental tests. That's why they make mazes for rats, right? To get to the cheese. Your house is a maze. Hey, if we close off this hole, how do you get to the cheese? They find the hole, they find the new hole. If we close off this hole, now how do you get to the cheese? And they're going to learn that path. Plus, they're going to leave a urine trail guiding everybody else to the path. And the thing about like rodents that's interesting too is like, is there's typically like an alpha male. So there's one that has learned all the tricks, and sometimes just luck, like him and a buddy are walking and his buddy gets in a trap and he's like, whoa, don't touch that. Him and his buddy are walking and his buddy eats the bait and he's like, whoa, don't touch that. And so he learns all the tricks to the trade, and you know, because if he sees his buddy die, he's going to remember that and he's not going to touch that.
Yeah.
And or if he like sees his buddy eat something and then he like dies and he comes up and he's like, oh, like what happened, dude? And then he like he learns, you know.
Yeah, they're animals. They're instinctual.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, you'll catch rodents in the attic. Like if we put like 30 traps up there, we'll catch some, but they'll typically be the younger ones. So you'll catch a lot of rodents. And the thing is, it's really, really hard to ever catch an alpha male. Like we have videos of them literally like, jump over this trap, jump over that trap, around this, do that, don't eat that. Like they know. And so a lot of times you don't catch an alpha male in a house. What you do is you more get up there and you start killing all his friends. And he's like, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. He's like, gigs up, you know, and then he leaves and finds a new house. And everybody follows him to that new house. And so it is really a group effort too. Like, and this is something like I tell people, like, you know, if we do your house, but their house isn't done and they move just right over next door, but that population is increasing, like it becomes like a pressure on you too. So that's why I always like to flyer the neighborhood, or at least tell people, because it is really a group effort. It's never like nobody ever has an individual problem in a neighborhood with pest control. It's not like that person has a problem. It's like, no, everybody has a problem because of that source.
Yeah.
That being said, sometimes the source is like we were talking about rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like, I mean, these things, we do ones for $5,000, $4,500, and landlords aren't always looking to drop $5,000 to rodent-proof a house, because it is a premium service. This isn't like they'll pay for patchwork. They'll pay for like 10 traps in the attic and a couple pieces of metal for $500.
Yeah.
To make the tenant like happy, but that's not the solution.
No.
Like,
no, y'all are going through and covering all the bases though.
It's our program that works. It's not our like proofing. We do everything possible to rodent proof the house, but we've done way too many of those to know that like, don't rely on that. Like we do a fantastic job. It looks aesthetically well. Like we're doing all the right materials in all the right places, preventing the weak spots and the potential points. But we still know that it's not perfect, because like they can chew straight through your roof. Like literally, I've had that happen.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of gaps around the roof line. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a lot. But let me kind of walk through these ones. So walking around, so you had that like spigot, there's a little gap there. You had the patio in the back. They like to nest underneath those patios because when it's hot in the summer, they don't like to be in the attic when it's hot in the summer. But so they'll go down underneath slabs of concrete, which are typically cool underneath there, and they're like chilling. This is like their summer house. That's their winter cottage up in the attic. Yeah. And then there's little gaps over here on that siding and stuff. And like we talked about, like they can just run straight up it. There's this eave joint. That's a very common entry point because houses are just built that way, where the eave comes down and hits the roof. There's gaps built into there, and it's just very common way. So every company has their own like method to rodent proof a house. Well, other companies don't rodent proof houses. Other companies do like rodent exclusions, which is like get them out and seal up the entry point. But we've developed, just through trial and error, how to rodent proof an eave, and like we're pretty much doing like origami with it, and we're like folding metal over metal and like interlocking it. So it creates a metal like pocket, because eaves are very complicated angles, and some companies will just try to wrap a piece of metal around it, or easy spray foam. They'll be like, oh, hole, spray foam, exclusion, $1,000. Like,
yeah,
you just waste $1,000 and you just waste their time. Like, that didn't do
anything.
We
just talked about all that spray foam.
It doesn't work. Like, they hit it, they're like, oh, this is fun. Like, they love spray foam. Some houses have like the insulation spray foam, like on the ceiling in the attic, and instead of like the fluffy insulation on the bottom. And rodents love that stuff. It's just a perfect little burrow for them to get through. And we've had it where like they'll die in that insulation up there, because like a lot of times we get our work because other companies come out and attempt to solve the problem and they don't. So then they call in, because we're not the cheapest. And like we are expensive. Like, that's good because we're the best.
You know? Yeah, you're paying for what you get though.
Like, we're not, like, we are expensive, but we're not too expensive. Like, maybe we're too expensive for you, but I mean, that's just because I've just done way too many of these to know it's not a simple problem to fix. And like, and you are paying a fixed price, and we have a variable result, which is trying to solve this problem. And I always tell people, like, because I was talking to this lady and she was like $2,700, and she had like a small house like in like Plano or something like that, and she didn't have like any eaves. It was just like some garage corners. She had some siding issues, and she was like $2,700. She's like, that seems like a lot for a couple rats. And I was like, 100%, that is a lot for a couple rats. I was like, and if all you want me to do is get a couple rats out of your attic and close up a couple holes, yeah, I can do it for like $1,500. I can give you the name of companies that will do it for $1,500, and if that's what you want, by all means. That's not what we do, and that's not your problem. Your problem isn't you have a couple rats living in your attic who have a couple entry points. Your problem is you have a house. You own a house, and that house just happens to be in the middle of an area with a lot of rodents. That's your problem. So how do we solve that problem? How do we keep that off your mind and keep that from relapsing again and again and again until all of your insulation is completely destroyed and you have to do a $10,000 rehab, until your wires get chewed up and you got to do a $10,000 fix, until your cars get chewed up and you got to do a $5,000. Like, that's the problem we solve, And we've got a program that we plug it into that solves that problem. And we've got probably thousands of people in that program now, because most of our customers have rodent proofing services, because most of our customers have rats in the attic and we have a solution to it. So I'm just kind of getting out all the good information for them to like kind of pick the pieces of, but I want them to have like all the stories, because sometimes they're like, yeah, rats in the attic. Do you want to, it's $5,000. Do you want to buy it? And they're like, they don't understand like the reason.
You want them to have the arsenal to be able to explain why the value is worth the value, and what they're paying for is actually more than the value of what that number says.
Oh, for sure.
In long term.
Yeah. So let me kind of pop through these like little itemized, like the pricing parts, and then I'll kind of talk about how I explain each of them and like justify it in the people's mind of like, oh, okay. Because what I don't do is I don't walk in with a, this, and I don't with a $5,000 number in there, and I don't go, hey, it's going to be $5,000. They're going to be like, for a couple rats in the attic? F you. Like,
yeah, that's what they will do.
Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, you're scamming me. Okay, screw you. Because they think you're trying to screw them, so they're like, screw you, dude. You're trying to screw me right now. And so you've got to kind of subtly get to that point and not get their like emotions set off, So I say, like I said, it's just kind of a 3-step process. Step 1, so that's, and now don't punch me. And I'll tell people that before I talk, kind of as a joke. I don't know if I'm getting too far.
No, you're good.
I'll be like, no, don't punch. Promise you won't punch me. And they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna punch you and stuff. I was like, okay, well, let me kind of explain this. So we mentioned step 1. So that's baiting and trapping. So that's actually getting rid of the vermin. So that's $1,000. And hear me out. You're probably thinking that's a lot of money, and I agree. $1,000. That's not a little bit of money. That's a lot of money. And so what we're doing, that's not paying for me to get up there and who knows how many times I'm going to have to go up there to get them out. That's not paying for like the 10 or 20 times I'm going to have to crawl through your attic and get the rodents out. I don't know if you've ever tried getting rodents out of a structure. It's not always the easiest thing. Sometimes it's easy and they just kind of run out and it's easy. Sometimes, oh my gosh, I can't tell you. We've been to houses 20 times, like trying to get them out. And when we're getting them out, we're also not just like walking around a solid piece of concrete, putting traps every 5 feet. No, we're literally 10 or 20 feet off the ground, walking on 1-inch studs in your attic. And if we misstep by 1 inch, our foot's through that ceiling. There's water pipes, there's wires, there's gas lines, there's cable lines, there's freon lines. Like, attics are super high liability areas. They're dark. You're using a flashlight. They're musty. There's poop everywhere.
You could always just use the analogy. It's like kind of like walking on a tightrope. Because you're on that very limited amount of space, and it's easy for one thing to falter left or right.
Yeah.
There's so many elements going in.
And it's not like I can just stay on the landing area. Like, that's not what, I wouldn't be successful if I did that. The rodents don't stay by the landing area because that's where you are, and that's where they smell you. They want to live. So they don't typically enter the attic through around the landing area. They enter the attic around the edges. So the activity is the worst on the edges, and then as it gradually moves in, by the time you're seeing that activity on the landing area, by that entry point, you got a problem, dude.
Yeah.
Like, when people call me letting me know that they have a problem, they have a problem. Because when I go in an attic and I look and I'm like, it doesn't look like you have a problem, I can most times find the problem, because I'll crawl out to the very edges and I'll be like, oh, here's the trails. And I'll let them know, like, you do have a problem starting, and, this is what will happen if you don't do it. This is like the path how things progress. And so, if all you want me to do is get them out, it'll take about 30 days. It'd be about $500. But the $1,000, what that covers is then, because I've put all those traps out, then I can monitor and then I can warranty the attic. Because let's say 6 months down the road, something gets back in, it gets into one of my traps, guess who's coming back out for free? Let's say that we do the maintenance plan and you extend that warranty. Because you've had me initially get them out, then I can warranty that they stay out. If I never get them out initially, I can never warranty them out. Like, I have people be like, I'll do the traps, you just seal up the house. And I can't do that, because I'm like, I'm not going to box up your house if I don't know that the rats are out. Because I would be boxing the rats into your house, and sometimes they'll chew out if you're lucky. But if rats are boxed into an attic, what else can they do? They can chew out of the attic into your house. And now we have a bigger problem. Mm-hmm. Like, trust me, because I remember when I started in this industry, I started pest control, spraying bugs. I remember the first house I ever did, Wendell Elms, in my sister's neighborhood that I was knocking. I started doing his pest control. He's like one of my first customers I made on the doors. And I found that there were rats in his attic. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I'd never dealt with rats because I'd always done just general pest control. So I started learning about how to do it. And I actually forgot the point I was trying to make with that.
Keep the rats out. The value for what you're paying for.
And it was like a new, the thing is, in the industry, it is a newer problem. Like 20 years, people have been here 20 years. People have been living in a house for 20 years. They're always like, I've been here 20 years. I haven't had problems for 20 years. I'm not going to have problems. And I'm like, you've been here for 20 years. This isn't a 20-year problem. This is a 10 to 5-year problem. As the population's been increasing, as more people have been moving here, and as rodents breed exponentially, it's become a lot more of a problem. And as those houses that were built 20 years ago are now 20 years old, and those materials are getting softer and gaps are opening up, now it's a problem.
It's always nice to also let them know that a female rat gives birth to literally several. I don't even, 5, 6, maybe something like that at a time, 7. Yeah. It's a handful. And so if you have 2 of them up in your attic, and that's just 2 of the 10 that are up there, and 2 of them are females, well, you just doubled or tripled your infestation within the span of 2 weeks, especially if there's 2 females that are pregnant that have migrated their way up there for warmth and finding a home. Oh yeah, it can grow just like snap of fingers.
Yeah, I don't know the number. It's like, it sounds crazy, but it's like 2 can turn into like 1 million in like a year, because it's just 2 turns into 20, 20 turns into 400, 400 turns into 1,600. 1,600 turns into 100,000. Like we're seeing like the movie Ratatouille with like the cooking. I've never seen that. Like, I've been in the rat industry for years, and people are always like, "Oh, is that like Ratatouille?" And I was like, what's that? He goes,
Yeah.
But then now my kids watch it like all the time. But there's this scene where the roof collapsed and there's rats everywhere. Like people are always like, oh.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, like, there is a lot of liability in the attic, but the thing is, you're not, like, let's just assume like the least liability thing happens and all we do is just put a foot through the ceiling. It's still going to be a couple weeks of headaches and stuff, but that's the thing is, you're not paying us so that when we put a foot in your ceiling, we've covered our costs of putting a foot in your ceiling. You're paying us because we're not going to put a foot in your ceiling, and because you're paying for that quality. You know, like there's this joke. This guy had this plumbing problem. He called this plumber, and the plumber like looked at the pipe, and he looked at the pipe, and then he took out his hammer and he hit the pipe, fixed the problem. And he was like, $300. And the guy was like, $300? All you did was hit the pipe. He was like, it's not that I hit the pipe. It's that I knew where to hit the pipe that you're paying the $300 for. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, it's just the experience, the knowledge. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And we do.